Hey, what's happening? Ronin Man here. We are right now. I got Gabe on the line, and Gabe is the perfect guy, actually. You didn't know this, Gabe, but I really thought about it well before we started. You're the perfect guy for this call. And I'll tell
Oh,
you why.
thanks.
Oh, yeah, you're the perfect guy. Because the topic is the next step, right? The next step. So, you accept reality, you see reality for what it is, you realize what's going on in society, right? And then you kind of realize it's pretty heavy actually, because you realize that everything for you to do in your life is built around that reality. You know, that eventually you're either going to fit into that reality, okay, you're either going to morph yourself into doing what everybody does, right? You're working all the time, getting married, do or whatever, all the things that the slave fucking life here, right? So I don't need to go into it, but it's like a set program, or you're antisocial. Basically, those are the only two options. In
Yeah.
the old days, there was a lot more options. So it's like when you're red pill, you're not that. You're like a successful guy with tons of dreams, with tons of talent, and you're wanting to do stuff, and you're searching for truth, and also like in some many ways you're looking for like expansion of your life, like not
Yeah.
to do the things that are stupid and to go and do cool things, right? So then I think this is something I kind of realized after the last 2 years being home. Next on the 3rd, which is my brother's going to come visit on the 3rd, that's the day that I arrived, and 2 years ago, and it's taken me 2 years to kind of realize what's going on here, what is actually happening in the US, because people say what's changed or what's, what I mean? People asked me in the beginning, but I didn't know yet. It took me time to kind of realize. So anyway, so what I realized is that there is, it's kind of heavy actually. It's kind of even a little bit difficult to put into words, but like there's nowhere to go after becoming red pill in America. Like there's nowhere to go. There's nothing you can do with your life that makes sense, because like for example, like a lot of guys, they're going to get married and have kids, right? And you're like, well, you wanted that. You love people, you have sensitivity, you love children, you love dogs, you like animals, you're a normal, protective, strong man, right? Logical man. But you see that it's just insane. The risk is just crazy. It's just like the road is not there that used to be there, even though you want that road. So then you're like, okay, well, then I'll just, maybe I'll copy Ronin Man. I'll just go out and date a ton of chicks, right? And I'll do that. But see, that was a special time in my life, a special time in history too. In Japan, they pretty much were going through a sexual revolution. It was a great time for me to do that, right? But here in America, even if you are a real serious Chad, and there are fucking serious Chads in this channel, actually, girls would be shocked. There's guys that could be, there's a lot of guys that are wealthy on the channel, and there's guys that could be porn stars. There's guys that are professional athletes. There's all kinds of guys in this channel, right? And so you could go sleep with a ton of women here, but you realize like, this is what I was, when I would talk to the pickup artists in America, right? And I was over in Asia, and they were like, I was very infatuated with them. And I thought, wow, they're teaching what I learned. And that's interesting, right? Passing it on. So then I came to the States and I was hanging out with them to kind of see what they're doing. And they were like, yeah, we're going to go to the club. And then, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then I went out with them, a lot. And I was like, they would hit on these girls that to me, they were like overweight and not attractive. Like they, I don't mean to say that in any kind of like, if you've been eating really, really good food and you go back to eating McDonald's, it is tough actually, because you don't want to be a prima donna, and you want to be, in reality all the time, right? You don't want to, but at the same time, you can't ever look at somebody, a shoddy goods, basically, as being prime rib anymore. So even within yourself, even if they were very into it, you just can't be that into it. You take a date or a friend to a nice steak restaurant, but you just know that it's not that good. It's chewy, and you're just like, you can pretend like you're having fun, but there's a limit because you've had better, right? A lot better. And you're like, well, I still have to make a sacrifice to buy this fucking steak, right? It ain't free, right? So I'm making a sacrifice for something that is not making me happy. So what do you do then?
I just
Right?
want to say, like, that's a real negative feedback loop that happens a lot because, like, I'm not into a lot of these girls, and then they're not into me, and then so I'm not into them. You know, it's just like a downward spiral of just being like, eh.
Oh, totally, totally. And I tell you something is that there is really something too, and I think this is totally misunderstood in dating these days. But a girl that you really want to fucking pound, you like, it's like deep in your loins. You just gotta just pound her into the fucking mattress. That kind of feeling, where like you know what I mean, like that. You
Yeah.
get that feeling sometimes with girls. They're just like, ah, it's a very animal feeling, and I think that experience is misunderstood because it's actually one of the essential parts of a romantic relationship. And it's actually probably the most crucial part, because when you really want her, right, this is what she wants too. She wants somebody that wants her in that way. There is a deep need for that. She doesn't want you to just, you don't really need her, like she wants you to want that with her. And also she will open up to you in a way that she won't open up to other guys. So when you don't have that, when you're compromising, when you've, for whatever reason, you can't get into her in the same way that most guys around here could, because I see guys here that's just a tragedy. I mean, I can't believe it. Like super handsome guys, like they got everything. They got money. Like in Santa Cruz, it was really bad. Like there was guys like they were like the coolest guy, like super cool guys, like in every way, right? And they were these women that were very low quality. And I don't want to go off on this too much because it's not about this episode is totally a different angle. The main thing is that once you reach that point, you can't go back. Because after I lived in Asia, after I traveled around the world, I came back and I was like confused. I was like looking at the world, and everybody was like chasing these girls. And to me, they just, I couldn't. I tried to, I was kind of like, oh, I should do that too. Right? I was a young man, right? But I just kind of looked around and I thought, I don't know, I just didn't have the same juice that I had before. I was kind of like, fuck, like they were probably 20, 30 pounds heavier than what I was used to, and also they were much more,
it's the
less
attitude.
innocent.
Yeah, they're not feminine or something like that.
Yeah, there was a lacking of, like, when girls over there would giggle, they would always cover their mouth and their face would turn red, and there was just a real realness to the interactions that I had with them.
Yeah, I want to be playful with the woman that's playful, but they're not very playful here,
Well, that's the thing, being playful is a key thing, because whenever you, like, I have a friend who I grew up with, and we were talking about something, and I said, hey, we used to go to Disneyland, right, when we were kids, and we used to wait out front and beg for tickets that people weren't using, because they used to have tickets, not one entry, and we would beg for tickets, and then we would go together, and we had so much fun at Disneyland. And I saw him, I was like, dude, we should go to Disneyland. That would be fun, me and you, because we used to go all the time. I grew up near Disneyland, right? And it was like, I think it was $4.75 to go to Disneyland back then. And yeah. And so then I was like, we should go. And then he looks at me, he goes, I don't like Disneyland anymore. And he had lost, and it wasn't just that. Because, I mean, it's fine, he changed his mind on Disneyland, whatever, right? But it wasn't just that. He had lost his playfulness. He was no longer playful. And his life, honestly, this was probably 25 years ago. And his life has gone downhill. Like, he basically lives alone. He's a recluse now, like a serious recluse. Doesn't talk to anybody. He sits there alone. He doesn't have a job. I would say, like if I was a clinical psychologist, I could put the labels on him, but he's just a guy who isn't the same person, right? That's the best word you can use as a normal guy. he's just not the same person. There's no life there, right? So that playfulness, when we lose that, and when girls don't have it or when they've lost it, you don't get it back. There's no way. It's impossible, actually. It's a changing of the guards. It's a new life. And that's why it's so important to keep yourself moving forward. And I was worried about you because you were working hard and you were doing your thing. And I was like, yes, that is good. And I'll explain that in a second why. But I was like, don't lose your zest for life. I was thinking,
Yeah.
Because here's what was going on with Gabe, so you guys can hear, is he was basically working for a job and working your ass off. And well, I don't know if it was ass off. You worked a lot, that was your life, and you were saving the money and you invested it very wisely. And I was like, dude, save money and invest, save and invest. And you're like, why? I hate this job. I'm like, just save and invest. Someday this is going to be your goal. This is going to change your life. And it's not about money. It's going to give you options, And you were like, I want to quit. I was like, stay. And I was like, stay, but don't lose your gabeness. That's what I was thinking, like, don't lose that zest for life, right? And that's what you see here. That's the reality of America, is that there is no more discovery here. Everything has been discovered, the pioneers came and they went across the states, and like it or don't like it, it was very adventurous. Okay, no matter what, they were guys from Europe, and it was huge deal for them, right? And Daniel Boone and boys wanted to be cowboys. There was a spirit of adventure, and that was no shit either. If you go back on YouTube, there's like recordings of people in the 1800s. They have. I actually started listening to them recently. It's mostly guys who were born, let's say, in 1830, and they lived until 1930. And most of the recordings happened in the early 1900s. But they're talking very eloquently about the Wild West and what it was like. And I listened to that. I listened to those, and I was so fascinated because I'm like, that world, it doesn't exist here. It just doesn't. Like, you don't like it or leave it. It's not here. It's like everything is set now. You need a license to do everything here. You can't just go do something, which you could in China. So anyway, so that being said, I realized that there is no place for a guy like me, because let's say I stay here and I become very successful, which I kind of have a road to go to a very successful model right now. Finally, I have an option. I didn't know what I was going to do. I finally got a good option where I could be the guy that I wanted to be. And part of me did want to do that. Like, I wanted to have, a really nice house. I wanted to have kids. The part of me definitely wants that, and I wanted that especially. And I was like, but it's going to be hard because I'm coming back. I got to get started. I don't know anybody, my skills are totally different, and everybody said it would be easy, but it's actually not easy to move back after 30 years. And it's not easy at all. It's very difficult, actually. But I did it. And now I got the option on the table to do what I kind of, you always want what you can't have. So part of me wanted to do that because I had never done it. I had never been a stable guy with a nice house that I own, and I live there, and I control the place, and I do what I want, and I could set it up as a bachelor pad and, the killer, whatever it is that I want in the house, right? And you get respect with that, being an American. I can understand that. And that life, now that it's on the table, chasing it was good because it forced me to kind of learn new stuff and challenge myself. But now that it's there's no way I'm going to choose it, right? There's not even a chance in hell, because life is so exciting when you're on the road, when you're out there in the world living the way I've learned to live, And so, like, I'm like, now that I see the actual and the path is there, I'm like, nope, no way, no fucking way, right? So what's the other option in that? Option C is, like you were saying, and I've seen this many times, you stay here, you make money, you save money, you invest in yourself, you get better and better, your investments do well. And what do? You end up buying McLarens, you get all the fancy watches, you get you don't eat fucking Walmart hamburgers anymore. You're eating whatever you want to eat, like literally whatever you want to eat at all times. You want to have lobster for breakfast, you fucking buy some big ass lobsters and make them for breakfast. And that's fun for a while. But I'll tell you something, that road, I experienced that road in my late 20s, where I had that situation. I had tons of money. I was making insane money. I was headhunting. I had tons of money from English teaching because I had invested it wisely at the time. And I was going crazy, and the stock market was going crazy, and everything was good. And I realized that this is probably, you guys don't know about me, and you probably don't know, but I was like looking ahead, and I was like, I looked at my boss, Brian, and he had a killer BMW. He had an M3, but it had a balanced engine, like racing balance, and it was all tricked out. It was insane. I drove it on the road from Tokyo to Shimoda once, just raced around the corners. Like, it was fucking insane. Such a fun car at the time. It was a total beast, dude. You couldn't even. It was, the engine was tricked out. I went to a drive-through once at McDonald's to get something, and you could not move forward without burning the tires. Like, the car would just, like, you just touch it just barely, and they would be like, and you'd go forward. That's how it was. The car was a beast, right? And then also he had a killer. This guy had the dream house that I always wanted. You guys, by the way, I hope that through my journey, you guys can see about your life. That's why I'm telling you this. You can see, is you think you want something, then you get it, and then the reality happens. And the difficulty is most guys just zombie into whatever it was that they thought they wanted, right? But I don't do that. And I don't recommend doing that. I recommend always learning, always adapting, and moving and into the darkness again, where you don't know what you're going to do, right? So anyway, I said, I am now in a position, I was making great money working for Brian, and I was like, he made $8 million in 1999. And it was insane. We were just banking cash, headhunting. It was crazy, huge deals, and it was so fun. I was really loving it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the challenge and I like succeeding, right? But then once I succeed, again, I'm faced with that kind of thing that I'm talking about, where the roads I don't want to go on. But the roads give you respect, and the roads are what everybody expects, and they're easy, and they're well worn, And then I'm like, but in ways, I'm a very troublesome person, because I'm like, fuck, I just don't want to be driving a McLaren. And Brian had this killer, like, dream place in Tokyo. Like, he had the whole top of a building. Imagine that in Tokyo, right in the killer neighborhood too. I mean, like, the whole top of the building, and he had his balcony was probably. It was probably a quarter of a football field. It was huge. And then he had the whole top for his house, and he had parties. He used to do threesomes with this girl who was literally, not kidding, she won the samba contest in Brazil. She won the samba contest, and she moved to Japan to do samba. And she was like a star, She was a tiny, little black girl. She was so hot. Anyway, he got her to eat fucking Japanese pussy, and he would fuck girls together. And he called me, and called me over, because we were both on the rampage. And he was just like living the life. He'd come out of his shower, and then one of them would be on all fours, grabbing onto the rail of the bed, and then the other one would be just eating from behind. And then that was his morning, right? Before work. And, he had totally different flavors there. He had sushi, and he had fucking, barbacoa, he had everything, right? And it was, and he was like, he also was a member of very exclusive clubs. He was a member of the Canadian Club, which was really one of the best clubs in Tokyo. There's the American Club. He had that too, but the Canadian Club was the secret one. That was the fucking one to be a member of back then, secretly. If you knew both, Canadian Club, not as nice a building, but better in many ways. So anyway, he was a member of both, and he was just cool. He was throwing money at me. He was like generous as hell, like Brian was like. Man, he was young. He's like late 20s. We're like making fucking money. We're laughing all the time. He drinks whatever he wants, best liquor. So this is his life. And I was working for him. And I was like definitely on the road to doing that. And he was like, dude, you got such a great future. Like, look at my life, He's like, you have so much talent, headhunting, you could totally do what I'm doing. Like, we can make so much money together. And I looked at him, and at the same time, I was having this thing where I started to feel this kind of a tightness in my chest. All of a sudden, my chest felt like I had a tennis ball in it. And I was under all this stress because I was working so fucking hard. And it was such stressful work. Like, my deals were, when you make money, there's a compromise. There's always a compromise. And for me, like closing a deal a month was no stress. And that's like let's see, like $30,000 commission. Let's see, like the average commission was, let's say the guy makes 100,000, so we make 35%. So 35,000. Then split that in half because I was only making 50 at the time. It wasn't my company, and I'd get 17,000. Yeah, so I'd make like 17,500 bucks a month, and that was no stress. But he wanted me to make big money like him, so he was like pushing me, and I was loving it. I was like, dude, push me, just fucking make me work. I want to fucking be a star, you know. I was like into it, right? But then once I did it, I got like him. Like, you know, he lost all his hair. He was all stressed out all the time. And he was living this life. And I was looking at it up close in person. He was honest with me. He's a good guy. You know, he's a good guy. And at the end of the day, you know, Gabe, I looked at it. I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want all the respect that society has to offer. I don't want all the stress, you know. And he took that job, by the way. He continued being successful. He invested in a solar company. Japan was just starting to subsidize solar, and he has huge farms. And so he's done very well. You know, he's done very well. He has kids with another, he likes black girls. So he has 2 kids with another black girl from Africa. And he's like super happy with that. But I wouldn't be happy with that. That's not, you know, once it was there, I was like, it's so difficult to say no because you feel like such a prima donna in a way, because you're like, God, that's such a good life. Man. How can you not like that? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's fucking good life. Right? And I like to get up close to these opportunities, smell them, feel them, get used to them, and then realize, like, you know, envision myself in them. And yeah, there are good opportunities. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, Keith Smith always says, like, if you're rich, you're happy. And there's, you know, money's nothing wrong with it. But the thing is I think the best of all worlds is when you have the talent to do stuff, you go push yourself, you make that money, you do that stuff. And then when you get to the brink of making a permanent decision on it, you really feel your inner gut. What do you want to do? And I'll tell you something, it is not convenient because most people don't want to die of a heart attack at 55. Yeah. You know, they don't want to do that. They don't want to be what their dads were, you know. Most single guys, they don't really want that. And the truth is if you are rich, and anybody who's been very wealthy or grew up in has a wealthy family, and you bought McLarens and things like that, you also know the truth about that stuff is it doesn't make you happy. And that is not some bullshit. It's true. It doesn't. It's wanting it, getting it makes you very happy. But when you have not unlimited, but you have, you know, kind of like long-term access to stuff like that, you realize it doesn't mean shit. And you kind of go through a new red pill phase where you realize that success is not what you thought it was, right? You know, you like the accolades from other people. Yeah, they're nice. But when you become a mature man, you realize you don't even need them. Like, I don't need somebody to think I'm a stud. I know I'm a stud. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't need someone to tell me that, because I instinctively know, like, why do all these girls, I don't know why, I must be fucking, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, okay. I kind of go to sleep. I wake up. I don't have to think about it, right? I don't, in fact, if someone tells me that, I don't even like it. Right. Because I'm not that word. You know what I mean? I don't like words because they have a lot of different meanings, but whatever it is that you're supposed to be for that, it's fine with me, and I'm fine with it, right? So, okay. So I don't need that, and I don't even want that. Because once you really do something, like, if now that you've been successful in your investments, yeah, it feels good. Yeah, things are good. But if you just keep talking about that forever and people keep giving you accolades, you'll see pretty quickly that you're like, yeah, it's nice and everything, but who cares? Like, now I'm doing what I want. I'm going to do what I want. What other people say and think about me, it does not fucking matter. So where do you do next? Like, what road is next? And this is, in some ways, this is pretty audacious. What I'm saying is that I kind of figured out a new way to live. I didn't realize it when I was younger, but by turning all these up, by going to the brink of all these opportunities in my life, and then realizing the truth of them, you know, most doctors hate sick people. You know, most people are not happy. So I go to that limit where I could do it. And then I realize right away, I'm like, yeah, but I don't really want what these guys really have once I really know it and I really have the opportunity. And so it's very heartbreaking because, for you and me, like we both want to do well, right? And then you get to the opposite, and then you're like, but I don't really want that. And I would tell my mom, I'd be like, I don't really want that. And she's like, she gets so frustrated. She's like, well, you work so hard to be there, and now you're there. You just do it. Just everybody, adults, make compromises. And there's this pressure that comes from society that we all kind of instinctively pass on. It's like, don't expect too much out of life. Like, you now have a great opportunity. Like, don't fuck it up. And like now, and there's this feeling too that you only get one opportunity in life or whatever, that. But for me, I've turned away killer opportunities many, many times. And part of me feels like an idiot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's mixed feelings for sure. These are difficult choices, difficult. And you will second guess yourself at some level. But at the bottom line is, as I've gone through my life, I've realized that it is actually the way to live with ultimate confidence. It's like, don't do anything you don't want to do, no matter how much you put into it. And the only way you can know the reality of a job or a relationship or anything is to actually fucking be right on the brink. When you're in the middle of it, your friends are doing it, you're part of it. You know what it's like that these guys wake up with stress. You know the reality, okay, of these guys' life, if you're lucky, before you commit. And then I get in there, I'm like, okay, I don't want that. And I'm like, but I don't want what a lot of guys on the channel want. A lot of guys, they want to be a fucking, the Unabomber kind of guy. They want to be alone and the river and, building a cabin from wood. And, that is not an attractive life for me, as much as I would love to do that for a month, right? I lived in the Philippines in a bamboo house, and I swam out to the fucking fishing boats every morning with money in my hand, and I would hand it to them. They'd hand me a bag of fish, and I'd climb. This is when I was like 23. I'd climb a coconut tree to get water. I'd fucking open the coconut, and I'd cook up the fish with the coconut milk. And, that was my life, and there was mangoes, coconuts, fish, and seafood. That's what I ate that month when I was there. And it was great. My rent was $18 for a month for a whole house, a bamboo house. I had a water buffalo. I had a girl that I was just boning constantly. I had a bamboo bed with no mattress. I slept on a bamboo bed with nails, kind of like heads of nails sticking up a little bit. She was used to it, but for me, it was difficult. But I learned how to sleep on a fucking bamboo bed. It's very uncomfortable. It's much more comfortable to sleep on a concrete, much more comfortable because it's flat, Those bamboo, man, they're rough, But I learned how to do it, and I lived that life, and it was great. But that's not the life I want. I want to learn that. I want to experience that for real, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the goal. That's not the plan. It's not the future. And also, one of the things that no one talks about is that when you date a chick, right? Any chick, it always ends in tragedy, basically. Basically, the reason why is this. The reason why the chick is dating you is because she's looking for something more. That's it. She is looking for something more. She's like, well, if this works out, then we could do this new thing, and then we could have a baby, and then we could, that is a girl's mindset. Whereas a guy is like, he might do that too, but the reality is he's pretty happy. I mean, a guy is basically happiest when he's with a girl in her prime. She's in her prime. She's hot. She's fucking into it. She's innocent. She's awesome. You're laughing together. You're giggling together. You're just melting together. You're doing all these things, and you enjoy time with her. Like, kind of every day is pretty fun. But then that's like the best, really, and it only goes downhill from there. She starts making demands, then it's like new goals, and goals and demands are very different from bubbly sweetness, right? They just are. So that's why I realized that's why I'm not dating chicks right now, because over time, I mean, I might in Asia do something else, but I just realized it's kind of like I get tired of breaking their hearts in a way. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm going to break their heart. Like I'll tell them that I'm not going to stay and everything, but they won't believe it, and they will fall in love, and then, and not all of them, but I mean like a lot of them, and then they'll want more, and especially if they turn out to be good girls, like nice girls, then it's really tough because I'm like, yeah. And then the longer you stay with them, they really pass their prime, and then you don't feel like right about it. So
Yeah.
dating is just kind of like a dead end thing once you realize the deal. And that's the deal, you guys. There's nothing else. That's the deal. She's doing it for long term, and she's hoping that it'll work out, and you'll be the guy she wants. And as a guy who you kind of realize you are the guy she wants, that there's a good chance at the end of the deal, you're going to like her. You'll feel very close to her. Time will have passed. She won't be as attractive as before. You will have done a lot of things together. And, the first time is kind of the most interesting, right? If you've ever traveled overseas, the first time I went to London was super insane. But now if I go back, it won't be the same, right? It's sad, but it's just true, So just accept reality, So like, I think I'm like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? And then what I don't want to hurt people, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that it's not technically hurting, and she's making a decision, and I'm being honest and all that. But at the end of the day, humans are not logical, right? Just me being a nice guy with her and making her feel great, and being connecting at that very deep level, human level. It's something that she can't control either. So even though she originally might think like it's going to be short term, she very easily can fall into where she's like, I didn't think I was going to feel like this, but now I do, and then I'm like, fuck, and I'm talking about the best girls, right? So with the losers, you can have a bunch of, other situations, but you realize when you're dating chicks, you want to get the good ones, and then the good ones, it's like you're breaking their heart in the end, right? Every single time. And then you realize you get older, you realize that it's predictable. You shouldn't have known that. Like, it's like, you're just going to break her heart in the end, right? So that's not the most enjoyable thing in the world either. I'm not here to break hearts, and the girls, they want more. And I usually don't, I'm very happy being with them, and I could be friends with them for the rest of my life. Like, we could be partners hanging out, doing stuff, but I really am pretty happy, and that is not the best solution for me. So, maybe there is some girl out there who speaks Japanese and Chinese, and I could travel the world with, and it's a total like fun girl, tomboy, fun girl to hang out with, good bone, who could hang long term. Maybe there is. I can't say there isn't, but most of them, they might act like that because girls become what you want without even being chameleons. They just kind of naturally, each boyfriend they have changes them a little bit, they learn new things from those boyfriends, and then they become, it's the nature of females, they become something, different after they dated you. Right. And so they, it's just, you just can't win. And especially when you date really sweet girls too, you're just like, ah. So anyway, not saying I'll never do it again, but I just definitely see that no matter what words I say, I'm not going to do this. It doesn't matter. Human emotion is just, and I forgive other people for having it. I have it too, right? I'm a human being, right? So I know that it's going to end up that way. So I'm like, fuck. So then what do I want to do, right? I don't want the McLarens, right? I don't care about that. I really don't care about that. I don't want, my ultimate desire, or what I really want, is not to own a house and to be a stable guy people respect, because there's limited. I don't really want that. So what do I fucking want, right? So it's so tough. This is why guys give up. Okay? This is why guys give up, is because they start feeling like they're asking too much out of life. They're like, nah, I can't, like I'm looking at options 10 times better than most people, right? You know what I mean? Like Brian, his situation, it was awesome, don't get me wrong, and, but the truth is most men like me are adventurous, and we kind of want to explore, and we become dead in environments where there's nothing to learn and nothing to explore. We are exploring machines until the day we die. We want new adventure. We want to explore. We want to see new things. And honestly, the reason why I'm making this episode is because normal travel doesn't scratch that itch.
Right.
So flying to Portugal, staying in the Ritz-Carlton, Uh,
Well, I think hotels in general, Airbnbs are pretty good, because you get a flavor for the area. But man, traveling in hotels really sucks. it's yeah.
it does. That's what you realize after you've stayed in a few of them, nice ones. You really think that's the way to go, and you think you're a loser for being in a youth hostel.
People will say, "Oh, this is the Ritz Carlton. It's a 5-star hotel, whatever the fuck." I'm like looking around, I'm like, this is just like any other hotel. I'm talking about as a little kid, even, and then as I've grown older, now that Airbnb is an option, I'll take that 10 times out of 10, pretty much.
Yeah, and there's whole. I guess what I am kind of getting to is that there's a whole new way of living that is adventurous. And it's not one detail. It's not like rent Airbnbs, you're done. Travel. There is a way of living. And I really I can't put it into words myself, but I can show people. And once people see it, they understand it. And they're like, I see their lives change as they become, like, they realize the dead end of these other roads, although they are good. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're not bitter. They're just like, that is a good road, but it's like, will I be happy on that road, for my life? And then you realize maybe not, And so you're like, well, what else is there? And what I discovered is kind of the way I live my life. So what I want to do is I want to teach that to people. I want to show that to people because I can't use words. You have to see it in action because it's not like one thing. It's a combination of problem solving, mindsets, actions, skills that need to be, ways of thinking and people skills and all kinds of stuff. So what I want to do is I want to take like a bunch of guys, whether it's 3 or it's, 8, whatever. So basically what I want to do is do a summit. And then afterwards, for the guys that can get more time off, to do like a 3-week trip together, or maybe even more. And you basically, I be the tour guide, not so much of the location, but it's of the way of life or the experience of life that is a very, in my experience, in my life, in my opinion, it's a very good life. And it's very, once you get there, you accept that things are not, like you can't get everything you want in life, but it is the best choice for me. It is a great choice. Like, you really realize you kind of nailed it. Like, you unlocked the secrets to life as a man, and that is a certain way of being, right? It's a way of traveling. It's a way of being. So I want to try this first and see how guys, because I get the feeling guys are really starting to understand what I'm saying, even though it's difficult to put into words, right? Like after, like you're getting it, like you're totally getting it. Like, I know, what I'm talking about. You're like, oh yeah. And then I was hanging out with Mika after the summit in San Francisco, and I was just listening to him. It was just me and him. We're just cruising around. We were going out of the docks and stuff, and like, I was thinking, like, he's got the disease now. Like, he's like a guy. He's like he's doing like hardcore blue collar work, but he gets it. Like, he totally gets it. And I thought, well, how did he get it? Like, what was it that I said or did? Or because, like, I can see that his life changed, and so I'm trying to pass this virus on to people. Kind of, I'm trying to give people a taste of another option, of another way to live. And so what I want to do is I want to do a summit. Like, if Japan opens, it would be Japan probably this summer, and then do a summit. And then for the guys that can stay longer, we take off on a trip. And I've talked about this before. I did this once before this trip. I took the coast, essentially, for lack of a better term, the coast highway from Tokyo to Osaka. And we went to all kinds of little villages, and it was an epic trip. It was a really great trip. And there's a lot of experiences along that way. It's real pretty. There's a lot of stuff to do. It's really cool. And it's really Japan too. It's like the heart of Japan. You really, if you ever had any interest in Japan, like, you really will. Like, you guys got to know that in Japan, like, a lot of people that are Japanese, they're born there. they don't, they're like you, like, or like people here, they're stuck into the matrix of life there. And they really never, this is going to sound audacious, but never really experienced that much of real Japanese culture. Like they're so busy reaching for things in modern society that they don't really have time ever to do a trip like this, to relax and to see life from this angle. And I know this for a fucking fact because when I used to go to AA meetings in Tokyo, I took a guy, Jun-kun, I took him on one of my trips. And to me, it was just another trip. Like it was no big deal, right? It was just a weekend thing. We slept under a bridge with no blankets. And we were like right over this killer surf rig. And we got there really late at night. We didn't have time to do anything else. We just said, fuck it, we'll just get a couple hours sleep. And we woke up and covered in mosquito bites. And it wasn't like, we're not going to do that. But it was just what we did in June, right? And then we sat there, we talked about things, and we did all kinds of exploring. Some of it crazy, I won't say because legal implications. We had a great time. We explored like crazy. And me and him came back, and I didn't realize what an influence it made on his life. But he started telling everybody in Japanese, he's like, the best trip ever is to go with Paul on the weekend. So then all of a sudden I had all these Japanese guys that wanted me to take them and show them around Japan, and just live my way of being, basically, because it's not exactly the Japanese way, but it's a combination of everything I've learned and am, right, combined with Japan, right? What is available there to do, right? Picking those sweet things to do, right? And so then I was like, holy shit, I'm onto something. Like, this is crazy. Because most people in Japan, they live a very busy life and they're stressed out. And just like I was, when I felt like I was going to have a heart attack, and when I was like not even 30 years old, and so what I want to do is I want to start to introduce more people to a way of life that I believe is very sustainable and you can do, and you can leave at any time, but you never lose by experiencing life in this manner, basically. You know what I mean? You're never like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You're never going to be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have experienced life at that level. Like that was waste of time.
Right.
You might, if you give up something big, like let's say you have a really nice car and you sell it, and then you come back and don't have a car, you might regret that. You got to make smart decisions, that don't sabotage potential options you might make in the future, right? Because you might come back and then most likely you're going to be changed, forever. And then you'll be like, well, fuck, I want to do more, but I got to make money before I go. I got to save money, which is what you've been doing. So that's why you're like the perfect fucking guy. So like now that I said all this stuff, I want to get into like let you talk. What are you thinking listening to all this?
Well, I just wanted to start off with saying how we started this conversation, just because I'm starting to kind of see some light at the end of the tunnel as far as my investments go. And maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, depending on how things go, I should hopefully be able to quit my job and then just do it kind of whatever I want within my budget, right? Which would be a reasonable budget for someone to stop working at. And as I was thinking about it, I have a friend that I have a couple of friends that made a lot of money in the past few months. And one of them, he bought a villa in Mexico, which is beautiful, but he's been sending, hey, come visit type of messages because I know he's out there and he's bored, right? It's a nice idea to get.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place from the pictures.
It's another trap. Yep.
But it's just him and his wife just sitting on the beach all the time, which is, I'm sure it's cool for a while, but and also he's a little bit older than me, but even still, I'll go for a month and hang out with him, but there's no way I would live there. No way. And so I was thinking about, if I were to stop working, what would I do? So that's kind of how this started, because like, if I just kept doing what I'm doing now, minus the work, it's essentially just wake up, go have coffee with my sister-in-law, hang out with my nephew and nieces, and then just like nothing. And it's just like being an old person. But that kind of sucks. But then it's like, well, what do you do? I don't know, because I'm not there yet. But thinking about it and looking at the landscape as far as like what society tells you, oh, this is what rich people do. Not that I would be rich, but here's what people do when they, you go to Paris or whatever. So
Right. Right.
it's just figuring it out for myself. And also, part of it is it's a little bit scary to leave your friends and leave your moorings, your family, leave the area that I've been attached to, right? Like New York, New Jersey. It's not so much the area, but my family's here, right? So it's even though I've lived by myself before when I went to Texas, it's still, at least I had a lot of things in that area. It wasn't really just I'm totally away from everything I know. So that's the part where I'm sure I'll do fine, and I'm sure I'm going to do it anyway. But that's the part that I do feel nervous about.
Yeah, the fear, like there's tons of fears. You'll that's your first fear, but you'll have many more. You know, the fears are, this is why everybody lives in the matrix. Basically, is because no matter how close you come, like you make the money that you thought you needed to travel, you just never do it, because you're like, well, things are good here and I do love my family, right? And you don't you get stuck. Because you're like, well, what am I going to do? What if it doesn't work out? I won't be here. It's basically just fear. Like what you're experiencing really in my opinion, has nothing to do with the family. It's like, well, wait a second, what's going to happen here? Like, if I actually do this, what am I going to do? What is going to happen to me? Hey. And so that fear is very real, right? And so naturally you're like, dang, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'll be fine, right? I can just keep doing whatever I'm doing, and you know what I mean? Like, people accept me, people will be fine with it. And then when you're thinking about something like that, like you're basically you're jumping off into the darkness, right? You don't know where, even you who has actually traveled quite a bit, you still don't know what it's going to be like, right? You don't know, right? So there's definitely that feeling when you're leaving that thing. And that's the truth, is like, everybody thinks that once they wake up, right, they're like, oh, I woke up. This is the bullshit I really don't, I just get tired of, is everybody's like, oh, I woke up, I'm not living in the matrix. You're not. Like, what do you do every day? Like, what is your life like? Like, what is so different? Like, what, you know what I mean? And so then when you start thinking about actually living a different life, dang, I mean, there's nobody in front of you. Like, nobody will. And here's the thing, Gabe, is people won't understand you. They just won't. And a lot of people will just think the worst too. They'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, he must be, they'll just kind of think of whatever it's more of a reflection of the way they think. But if you live in a certain country, they might just assume you're doing whatever people do there, or they're going to assume that you lost your marbles, or they're going to think that you're unreliable. They're going to think that you're not a good son. I mean, there's a million things that people just will think about you. And you kind of have, when you live outside the matrix, you have to accept that you will not, by the outside, because you think, a lot of guys think, if I figure it all out, if I live a killer life, like, people will understand. They won't. Like, they just won't. And then here's the kicker. Here's the fucking kicker, Gabe. This is the worst one for me. When you do nail it, when you really do nail it, and people realize you nailed it, they can't put into words what you're doing, but they know you nailed it. They get insanely jealous of you. And they totally fuck you over as much as they can. Because what happens is they realize the depth of their own life, like the situation that they've compromised on, and they see you doing it. And it just drives them. It's one of these things that, like, the level of envy has no end to it. Because at first they think you're kind of an idiot, right? And then they're like, oh, he's a wild guy or something, you know. And then once they kind of get closer and closer and closer, a lot of them, you see the light comes on and they're like, I'm a slave because I don't have the balls to make changes. And he isn't. And I'm a slave because I got fear, you know. And I don't like, you know, maybe they don't like their own wife or whatever. They don't like the life they're living. And they're just like, I just haven't done the work. And this other guy has not only living a good life, it's because he earned it, right? He did or got the skills and he went and did it. He had the balls to do it, right? And that level of envy is insane. You be ready for some hurricanes of people like just smearing your name. But again, as you get better, as you get more comfortable with yourself, you'll realize that they're not envious of you. They're basically what causes the strong emotion in them is that they realize that they're not living their dreams, right? They're not that their life is like a huge fake in a way. It's a big compromise, and they pretend like it's good, and they don't. You know what I mean? So it's more about them, right? And this can be for a very extremely wealthy person too, because it's not about an envy of things; it's an envy of the art of living. You know, you're living. You know, there's this great movie. I just love it. It's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. It's one of my favorite movies about the invasion of Czechoslovakia. So it's kind of very apropos for today, you know. And there's a scene in there. It's great. Oh God, there's a fucking scene in there. Oh my God, it's so good. I don't know why this thing hits me so much, but there's a scene where they're at this dinner table, and the guy says, he says, "Look at them over there." And there's like the communist officials are like eating and drinking, you know. And I shouldn't give it away. I won't give it away. Yeah, that scene where he talks about Odysseus. Yeah. Oh God, I think it's Odysseus. He talks about Greek. Yeah. So this is great. Oh, the scene is just, it's so cutting and so biting and so true. You watch it, it just eviscerates people. You know, it's killer scene, and it relates to like your life too. You know, it's a great scene. And some art is just transcends normal life, and that movie is one of them to me. But you know, the guy found a happiness in living. You know, and he starts out, he's this really successful guy, and he as is. So I won't give away the story, but things change after the invasion, right? And it's his life and choices, and he's such a ballsy guy. I've always respected that guy. I've always kind of thought in my life, like that's me. I'm that guy. Like that is the way I think, and that's the way I want to live. And you got to watch the whole movie to get it, because if you watch the first few scenes, you won't really get the guy. But he is a great character. And you know, you live a life that you see the folly around you. You know, and he gets destroyed because he sees, and he says, you know, and he's not ashamed of, you know, his the way he sees life, and he sees it accurately. And people hate when you see them accurately. When people are living a shit life and you see it, and even if they know you don't care and you're just happily living your life, they know you see it. They know you see their fakeness. And they know that they're compromising, and then it just drives them insane. There will be guys like that. The better you unlock the secrets to life, and the unbearable lightness of being really is the truth about living. It's the unbearable lightness of being. It's not about things. It's an amazing thing. Life is like plants. I mean, there's nothing else. Life is. We don't think about it that much. It's this incredible thing. You know what I mean? There's nothing like it. A rock is nothing like. My mom just got these 2 new cats, you know, and they're like running around the house all the time. And it's just lovely to watch them, you know. They're like young, and they're just on the rampage like all night, running into the walls, sprinting across the room and knocking shit over all the time. they're like 1.5. Like that she rescued them, right? And it's just really fun to watch them. It's life. It's life, and it's brought a new life to the house too, which is pretty cool. But I want to try to introduce that to people, and also I respect. I'll end on this thought, not necessarily the end of the podcast, but for the end of my thinking is like I realize at a very deep level that there's a lot of people who are attracted to Ronin Man channel who are exactly like me, and I see as equals, and that we can together discover new shit, right? Go deeper into life. Once it's like this, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, kind of thing, and that is very true. And then the guy, he transforms because of where he was ready to be, right? It's not because of me. He was ready to be that, right? And that type of person is exactly why I made the channel. I wanted to meet guys like you, guys who were in the same mindset, guys who saw what I was seeing. So that's the other reason why I think it'd be great to do a long trip, is because you do get to know people better, and you see, you know what I mean? Someone gets diarrhea, you see it, right? You don't hear it, It's like, it's real life, right? You're with people and you see what is really going on in the world, right? And that is important. I think that's extremely important because, I am serious about this, that I believe I have, and I want to share. Like, this is not something I put on, or I will not be doing anything special other than just being myself and living the way I live, and hoping that I'll find other kindred spirits, right? That's all I got to do. And then other people, like just talking to Mika, I realize, like, wow, this is incredible. Such a different life he lives. But I can see, that the trail, the same trail, right? And I know something's, guys like that, I just know, like you, when I met you, like I knew there was going to be changes in the future, because you were going to see more, realize more, see more options, and then you were not going to be happy with the status quo. You're like, well, that was fine, but now I see more, right? And I see other things, and I want, I want those things. Why am I not doing these things? Like,
Right.
well, what is, why am I that I can't move forward in life and see more things? Like, why am I stuck? Why am I different? I'm not, it's like, well, fuck, I'm just going to do it. The bottom line. So fuck it, absolutely fuck it, and I, just to answer that little fear you had about family, is the thing about family is when you leave the family, I'm down at the down the hill here. My mom just walked by with her friend who I've known since I was like 12, and my family, they didn't get farther away by me being abroad. And what actually happened was my parents started to travel, and they came to Asia, and then it changed their lives. So I gave a little bit of my adventure to them. I was the one out forging the trail, and then my sister and my brother, everybody kind of, they followed suit. Right? They had traveled, they'd been to Europe and stuff, but they didn't see the world. Right? And I was like, fuck it, I want to see the goddamn whole fucking world, right? And third world countries and everything. And I infused them with an interest, and I think I pretty clear I changed their lives. So there's more, there's more, and I want to choose places where we can groove on this, because some places just don't, like traveling in the US, no matter how much money you have, it's not, it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like you say, hotels are nice and everything, but a lot of the missing ingredients are not here. There's a lot of deadness that you don't experience. The closest thing I had was during the Ronin tours, because I stayed at guys' houses. And so I got to be in different people's lives and see and grow and learn and see their town through not my eyes, but like our eyes. Like, you know what I mean? People are like, I know exactly where we should go, And I'm like, well, there's these famous places. He's like, no, we got to go check out this bridge, Okay, you'll love it. Don't worry. And they were always right. It was always right. It was always like, wow, this is the best place, We got to just walk. It's a great walk over here. Yeah. No. We don't have to go there. And it was like great to meet, kindred spirits. But that was a very rare US thing. You usually US, you're not getting that. You don't get that. Whereas in third world, it's much closer to the earth. You're closer to the earth. And even in Asia, when you're away from big cities, you're really in an adventure land. There's nothing there. It's a different. I can't really explain it, but it's good. It's good for what we want to do. It's good. And then maybe in the future we can do Africa. I really want to do a long Africa trip. Yeah, for sure. Africa is perfect. India is perfect too. I've already done long trips in India. India can be really awesome. A certain way of doing it, not the tourist way where you're around all the scammers, but when you actually get into real people's lives and stuff outside of the cities is awesome. Fucking India is awesome. I love India. But Africa, I definitely want to do Africa. So I think this will be kind of always on the table now, from now on, like these maybe summit and then a longer trip for guys that want to kind of just cruise around together and check it out. I'll be like the tour guide and organizer, making sure we kind of, as best as we can, get into the situations that would be good, and see what happens. See what kind of like what experiences we will have and how this will change, things, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, anything else you want to say on anything, Paul, or is that?
No, just that it was really great talking to you because, our conversation. This morning I had no inspiration. I was walking around. I tried to start a video a couple times. It just wasn't working. You know what I mean? And then just talking to you, I called you, and then you answered right away. We started talking, and then I thought, wait, something's coming up here, something good, And so it's kind of a good example of how the mutually beneficial thing is, because creating things is really difficult. It is not easy to come up with new ideas. It's really difficult. And having people that are around you that can somehow help you work that magic, right, is valuable. It's very valuable because it's an idea inside me that's got to get out, right? At the same time as I want to bounce it off somebody to see if it's to get reality and you know what I mean? Like get like, is this even real? You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're pulling out a new idea, you're just dragging the seaweed out of the ocean. You don't even know what the hell's down there, Yeah. And having a person who's good at it, and you're very good at it, I gotta say, you're like really good at it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's nothing to thank. It's true. Because some guys I'll be around and they'll really want to help, but it just won't work. Like nothing will come out. You know what I mean? But talking to you, it's just like the right combo where it just kind of comes out. And that's fucking gold. That's gold. So maybe we can come up with some new things, some whether it's new episodes or whatever the fuck,
Yeah, but glad I could be your muse.
Yeah. I hope the ideas will help you to see where you're at too, because you're in this stage, right? And it's like you're looking down the road. I was hitting you when you said 2 years. That's fucking awesome. Because you're not like, I gotta leave this. I gotta, you know what I mean? You're taking like a long, smart view now, and that's fucking awesome. Yeah. And there's a confidence with that too. You got a confidence.
Yeah, it helps get through the boring days for sure.
Well, but I think it came from doing the right thing, right? You know what I mean? Like, you don't get confidence for no reason. You now see a path. You're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And the confidence comes from that, not from, watching a motivational video or something.
Yeah. Right.
So that's cool to see. Very cool to see.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Hope it's been useful to the guys, and I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but that's kind of the plan. And if it's Japan or Africa or whatever the fuck, could even be like somewhere else tomorrow. I'm open to whatever. I was kind of thinking of doing an event at Pebble Beach because one of the guys has a cool house, and he was willing to do it up there. It's up near San Francisco. I was thinking of doing a summit up there, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'd like to hear if anybody, because I might be going to Thailand, right? So if I go to Thailand soon, then this would be the last one, right? So now I'm looking at visas. They changed everything. I'm getting pretty close to going back to Thailand. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right. See you, man. Thanks.